The Healthy People Report states that statistics on high school learners who have never experienced alcohol use has increased from 19% to 28% from 1998 to 2009. Similarly, the percentage of high school learners who resisted the onset of illicit drug use has increased from 46% to 53%, a promising outlook on peer pressure drug use among teenagers. But the relationship between peer pressure and drug use has raised the questions on how vulnerable teenagers can be at the consequences of drug use. Drug use caused by peer pressure can also play a major role in academic success. My name is Ty McTague, and today I'm going to be talking about peer pressure, drug use, and academic success. My research question is, since 1975, to what extent has the negative effects of peer pressure on teenage drug use influenced academic success within North America? My argument is that a peer pressure environment has placed adolescents in less than ideal situations, provoking them into drug use. Having this pressure to conform to group or individual peer pressure has been proven to take time out of academics and into drugs. This can all be seen through harmful obedience, cognitive function, and social withdrawal. To start off, harmful obedience can be seen as more compliance with a request to aggress in relation to liabilities and synchrony. It can be connected to peer pressure in teenage drug use, as teenagers can be peer pressured into conforming to popular ideals or beliefs that are not in their personal best interest. We're going to discuss the role that harmful obedience plays in conforming to peer pressure among these adolescents. In our first study by the Royal Society provided by College Board, called the Cultural Evolutionary Trade-off of Ritualistic Synchrony, found that synchrony made people more likely to comply with a request to administer a sound blast to a stranger and more likely to follow an experimenter's command to grind up black pill bugs. The findings in this experiment can help visualize the trade-offs within groupthink ideals and how individuals would be more likely to conform to harmful actions when accustomed to peer pressure in group environments, as seen with the visual on your right. The visual on your right shows the likelihood to comply to harmful requests in both synchronous environments and non-synchronous environments, those being almost double of the synchronous environments. The second example we're going to discuss involves sixth graders and alcohol use done by Donna Clanson and Bradford Brown. The study was set up with almost 400 sixth graders, and among those sixth graders who reported intentions to drink in high school, 23% of the variance was due to perceived use by older peers, and 13% of the variance was due to friends' approval. From this, we can identify the main issue, which is harmful obedience, the driving factor within peer pressure leading these teenagers down a path of drug and alcohol use. Having said that, identifying the issue involves embracing oneself in group environments that include the use of illicit drugs, therefore provoking the need to conform to group intention. In addition to harmful obedience, we're going to discuss cognitive function. Cognitive function can be seen as how the brain reacts in peer pressured environments, as well as how the brain reacts when inducing the drugs themselves. The first study we're going to look at shows how important the rate of drug delivery is when considering addiction. The findings in this study demonstrate that the differences in the rate at which addictive drugs are administered determine their ability to produce psychomotor sensitization, which is associated adaptations in the brain. What is truly remarkable is that a mere 20 seconds can change whether specific neural circuits are engaged. The second analysis we're going to look at is a whole brain analysis revealed on the top right, revealed that there was a parametric increase in TPJ activation when adolescents considered conforming to relatively more negative influence, and no parametric changes in TPK activation when they considered conforming to relatively more positive influence. The second whole brain regression analysis, with the whole average frequency of conformity, revealed adolescents who exhibited greater PSTS activation when considering relatively more negative versus positive influence had lower rates of conformity towards negative versus positive influence. Finally, social withdrawal can be seen as when children remove themselves from opportunities for peer interaction. We're going to discuss drug distractions and how they reduce study time. A study done concluded that when you introduce drugs into a child's environment, they trade off a certain activity. In this case, it would be education. Studies have shown that the classes as seen in this bar graph, we can see that 83% in total had traded off one or the other, and only 7% were able to still complete their academic success while being involved in drugs. Some of my solutions and limitations include stopping the drug use at the origin. We would create academic quotas within school systems of the harmful effects drugs can have on adolescents' bodies. Stopping the problem at the source is our most effective way of preventing drug-induced individuals. We may face public resistance, as studies have shown that classes educating children cannot be the most effective, as children already involved in drugs are easy to deny these facts. My second solution would be recovery programs. So for individuals that are already induced in drugs, the benefits would hopefully be enough to counter the limitation to this solution, which would be parent hostility. Parents may oppose this form of recovery, as they might feel it is nobody else's responsibility for the health of their child except theirs. This may change if the outcome of the recovery programs were positive. To conclude, a peer pressure environment has placed adolescents in less than ideal situations, provoking them into conforming to drug use. Having this pressure to conform to group or individual peer pressure has been proven to take time out of academics and into drugs. And this can all be seen through harmful obedience, cognitive function, and social withdrawal. This is my works cited. Thank you. Any questions?
2 questions for you. First up, was there evidence you gathered that you didn't use, and if so, why didn't you use it?
Yeah, so I actually gathered a lot of evidence on cognitive function, and there was one piece of evidence that really touched on this point, but it led my presentation over 12 minutes, so I had to cut it out. But I felt I was still able to complete my claim even without that piece of evidence.
Okay, and what advice would you have for other researchers that consider this topic in the future?
I would advise them to research more on the cognitive functions and how the brain really reacts when put into peer pressured situations, because I could only touch on that, but if you dove deeper, I think you could find a lot more information.